Okay, so how do we do this? We went over this rate very briefly. First of all, in the beginning of the period, we estimate the part of the indirect cost because we don't know the exact number until year end, so we want to just do a rough estimation, expect what is the total cost that may occur in this entire year. Okay, and then we use this number, we divide it by quantity of allocation base. Now this could be machine hours, this could be labor hours, or labor cost. So basically what this is what is the thing that drives the indirect costs? What is the main factor of causing these indirect costs? We want to divide it by an estimated quantity of machine hours, or labor hours. Okay, so we predetermine this rate, use this overhead rate, and then multiply whatever hours, whatever machine hours, labor hours that occurred in one particular job. We use this rate, multiply the hours to get that indirect cost for that particular job. So for each and every order, we may have a different number of indirect cost, meaning the more machine hours is used for one job, the more indirect cost is assigned to that job. The less is used for this job, the less is assigned to this job. Okay, so unlike direct materials and direct labor that we actually know the numbers, the cost of the products, cost of the materials we're using, the cost of the wages that actually incur. Indirect cost, we need to measure a rate up front because we don't know what's the total indirect cost that will incur in this entire year. So first step will be estimating the total cost, and we divide it by an expectation hours, expectation cost. Could be machine hours, labor hours, right? So once we figure out that rate, so first of all, how do we understand this?
The percentage of dollar is going to go to every manufacturing overhead dollar that's nominated.
You're very close. So what this means is for every direct labor cost incurred, every dollar of direct labor cost incurred, you will have 40 cents of manufacturing overhead costs incurred. Right? So if this particular job producing a certain product costs me, we need to hire an employee to work for us for 100 hours, then the indirect cost that goes into this job, we use that 100 hours multiply 40%, meaning for that job there's $40 of indirect cost. Okay, so how we understand this number is per dollar of direct labor cost incurred, there will be 40 cents of indirect cost incurred for that job, assigned to that job. And remember, this is just an estimation, a rate. We predetermine it in the beginning of the period, use it as a base to multiply the actual hours being used for each job. Then we can get the indirect cost we assign to that job. Are we getting it or no? Not sure? Okay, let's take a closer look at the 40% where it falls under. This is where the 40% is. We predetermine the rate. Then we multiply how many machine hours or how many labor hours. This is decided by the management level. What's the allocation base? Once we decide on that, multiply how many actual hours being used for this particular order, then this will be the indirect cost for that order. Okay, so if it's 40%, we decided this already. If there's 100 labor hours being used for this particular job, then the indirect cost will be $40 for this job. So you will be recording $40 here, transferred it to work in process, $40. Okay, so if it's 1,000 hours, then it will be $400 here. 10,000, $4,000 here. So the more labor hours, the more machine hours being used for each job, the more indirect cost is being assigned to it. Okay, because if we use labor hours as a base, think of it as a factor that drives indirect costs, then the more being used, the more cost should be assigned to that job. It requires more labor, requires more machine hours, and therefore the more indirect costs assigned to that job. So when we cost customers, that job will be more pricey than the other job that doesn't require that many machine hours or labor hours. Okay, makes sense? Maybe? Right. Yes.
Can you go back to just step one, just real quick?
Just calculating the rate? Okay, so the problem you see, definitely they'll be telling you what is the base to divide the total indirect cost. The problem will tell you if this is a product that heavily relies on machines, let's say puzzles. You need machines to definitely separate the board into different pieces. So if it's machine-intensive production, then they will tell you what is the expected machine hours. And you use that hours to divide the expected manufacturing overhead costs, you can get the rate. Then after this, per customer's order, just multiply how many machine hours has been used for this particular order. That will be the indirect cost for that order. Okay, now for labor-intensive production side, if it's gifting business, decoration business, most likely you would need to use actual manual hours as opposed to machine hours. And you'll multiply, you divide it by estimated total labor hours, and then you multiply the actual labor hours used for this particular order. Okay, let's take a